Hey everybody, it's Gabriel from NU-AGE Motoring. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than my usual content. Today we're going to be breaking down the parts list on the BRZ, and I'm going to be answering some questions that people have asked me over the years and stuff I've always wanted to talk about in a video. So let's get into it. So to start, I figure let's go over all the exterior parts from the front to the back. To start, we got the yellow headlights. That's just some vinyl that I applied over the stock headlights. Don't look too close at that. We got the 3-piece race louvers hood vent kit. Works really well in combination with the ACE radiator shroud for the radiator and oil cooler cooling. Pretty happy with that. We also have the TS edition fog light covers. Because this is a 2020 limited, so it actually comes with fog lights, but some people may remember I used to run brake ducts in those, but I removed those because they weren't doing a whole lot, or I wasn't utilizing them the way that they should have been. So I took them out, just covered those up. We also have the OEM tow hook because it works the best. And moving on to the side, we have these Veris carbon side marker deletes, just some carbon in there. I don't run the splash covers anymore. Regular fender garnish. For side mirrors, we got the APR GT3 carbon mirrors, and then this is a Veris anti-wind buffeting diverter. I only run it on one side because that's what I found is I need to get rid of the wind buffeting. And then moving on, we have these STI door handle little guard garnishes. Those were one of the first things I put on this car. Got my collection of track stickers from trackdecals.com. Moving on to the rear, we have the TRD rear aero garnish, I think they call it. Also, I did want to point out that I took my shark fin roof antenna off, and now it's just a piece of aluminum tape covering the hole. For rear lights, I use the Intech version. They are a little bit more lightweight than the OEM 17 Plus BRZ taillights, so I like that. And then my spoiler is a Veris carbon ducktail spoiler that I've paint matched to the World Rally Blue. We also run this carbon Tom's plate delete that I actually made myself at their factory in Japan. It was a tour for Tokyo Auto Salon. Then I run a Cusco tow hook for the rear tow hook. Oh, nothing fancy there. And then my exhaust is a nameless ultra quiet muffler. It gets the job done, somewhat quiet. Moving on to the interior, we've got the stock dashboard is still in, stock steering wheel with the airbag still in there, which I really should take out, but we have the Tom's accelerator pedal cover. I took all the carpet out, all the sound deadening material as well. For seats, we have a carbon Brid Zieg 4. Just the seat I wanted. Carbon's a nice bonus. It's got the planted aluminum seat rails and Recaro sliders on a planted bracket on the bottom. Seems to work really well for my purposes. The passenger seat is just a Sparco QRT-R. Just whatever 425 Motorsports had in the back that was used, and I needed a passenger bucket seat, so here we are. Same seat rail set up on the other side as well. For harnesses, I use the Sabelt 6-point saloon and I believe they call it. Everything is nice and adjustable. It's got the multi-piece release for the shoulder straps, which I really like. And then the roll bar is by 425 Motorsports, and it is welded into the frame with these little box pieces in the bottom. And then these little harness collars came from Renline. All they're there for is just to keep the harnesses spaced 3 inches apart at the maximum so that the Honda device works correctly. That's just what they recommend for spacing on those. And then I forgot to mention that the clutch assist spring, I took that out, so the clutch is a little bit more direct feeling, but there is some little bit of a slop on the top end. I guess maybe I can adjust that out, but other than that, I really like how the clutch feels. And then in the fuel tank basket, there's the BRZ trapdoor for the anti-fuel starve. I run the car as low as 1/8 of a tank on the track and never really had any fuel starve issues, but I'm not running like crazy grippy slicks or aero or anything yet, so who knows. And then a couple other notes. On the door cards, I did take all the speakers out of them on both sides, but I'm keeping the stock door card because it has this nice little pocket or cup holder where I throw the keys. And then the passenger side has a handle, which I noticed the GR86 doesn't have, and other than that, there's nothing to grab onto. So, you know, I usually see people grabbing it, so I guess it's useful. And then I have these little, same as the door handle, these STI like kick panel, I guess they call it. It's like an extra carbon-y surface. Definitely take some hits. Moving on inside, we have a TS Edition shift knob, which is just red. It's not weighted any more than the OEM one. Some race car go burst switches for manual radiator fan, pedal dance, and ABS off, and then the fourth one is a spare. We have the OEM Toyota radio delete, and then we have this panel signed by Max Orito. This is the phone holder that I've been using all these years for my ECU Tech gauges. It's just some Amazon clip-on something I bought for $12 and it's held up all these years. My reverse mirror is the JDM edgeless glass mirror with a wide angle mirror on it. I believe it's from Revolution. I don't quite remember, but just something that I used to, or one of the first things I put on. It is kind of heavy compared to the stock plastic one, but I just haven't found a reason to take it off yet. I did delete the side curtain airbags and the headliner, so it's pretty thin. And then the rear. Yep, there's nothing back there really. Oh, we have this Element fire extinguisher stick, which is probably the bare minimum in terms of fire extinguishers that you should have in your track car. You should probably have a real 5-pound bottle, but this will do for most people, I guess. And then there's a thing that holds up the camera for all my videos. It's just a suction cup marked with those tapes that's been on there for 4 years now. Moving on to the engine bay, I have these 8.6 speed hood dampers that holds everything up. You know, just so you can pop it open nice and easy. And then on the edge, I put this foam, it's like just adhesive windowsill foam, along the whole side and the fender to prevent hood flutter. That was before I had the hood vents. As for engine mods, I don't really have anything special. This is a stock airbox with a HKS Super Hybrid panel filter in there. The sound tube delete is just this is like a $1 PVC slip, like end cap, and then I just shoved it in there, put the hose clamp on, seals up fine. This is aluminum. I got that put in when I did the Jackson Racing dual radiator / oil cooler. You can't see it, obviously, it's back there, but here's the sandwich plate for that, nice and clean. And then this is the intake section of the ACE radiator fan shroud. We also have this carbon TRD strut brace. It's nice and light, looks nice. I have a Cusco catch can. It's the universal type, but it's just plumbed in line with the intake manifold vacuum. And we have an anti-gravity ATX20 in a melee box for a lightweight battery. And then for my clutch and brake fluids, I use Project Mu G4, which is the green stuff. Works good. This Project Mu sock, it's probably some fake one I got off eBay for really cheap, but it does its job nice and fluffy. Might as well talk about my camber plates. These are a non-production version of the 949 Racing Zeta plate. So this is, I believe, an OEM camber plate from Tractive. I lose a little bit of bump, I guess, but it's a camber plate, does the job, doesn't slip. For any other mods I have in here, we just have these Varus fuel cover sound isolator deletes. It's just a bracket to hold this ECU unit on, and then the other side is literally just a plate, which doesn't have to be there, but I have it in there because it's part of the kit. I also have this Gerald Just Projects Flex Fuel kit. That's just there so I can have E85. The wiring is all tucked under the core support, comes out by the overflow, and plugs into the secondary O2. So I think here's the part people will find maybe the most interesting, if not the bottom of the car. But since this is a performance package, I have the 4-piston Brembos in the front. I use a 2-piece gyro disc for my rotors. And then for brake pads, this year we're on the Carbotech XP12. Kind of hard to tell because everything's covered in brake dust. For my coilover, I use the 949 Zetas, as mentioned before. It's a inverted monotube with a helper spring, and for spring rates, I use 7K in the front. The end link is also by 949. Nice and loose in there. We have the TRD 21.6mm front sway bar as part of their kit, which actually works pretty well. And then I also have the white line roll center adjustment kit, which includes this tie rod end and that extended ball joint way in there. Oh, and I have these Spiegler steel brake lines as well. The wheel studs are ARP extended, and the reason they look like that is because I use ARP bolt lube, because I use these aluminum 949 lug nuts. And if you know anything about aluminum lug nuts, is that they tend to gall and seize up on these steel wheel studs. So my friend told me about this trick where you put ARP bolt lube, and every time I check the torque, it's the right torque, so I'm happy with that. I do keep the fender liners in, and as you can see, they're kind of beat up from gravel, but they are fully intact with no rubbing or marks anywhere on the inside. Just to show that my suspension doesn't rub. So for the rear, I'm running the ARP studs as well, but they are not extended like the fronts. They have this ball end so that the lugs go on nice and easy. Also running the gyro disc 2-piece rotor with the performance package rear caliper with the Carbotech XP12s in there and the Spiegler steel brake line. And then for the suspension arms, I just have a SPC rear toe arm and the Varus rear lower control arm. Nice and shiny. And then the end link is by SPL, I believe. Just a double spherical. And then the sway bar is the 15.8 mil TRD with the reinforcement plate right here. And for the 949 Zeta coilover in the rear, I run a 9K rear spring rate with quite a beefier helper than the front. For wheels for the past 2 seasons, I've been running a 17x9 plus 35 for both of these. This is a Ongrid Sport TC105X. I use these as kind of like my beater track wheels that I don't really clean and don't really mind if I bend or curb rash them, which my wheel guy says they're not quite round, but they balance out fine and they're what I run most of the time. And then for time attack and more grippy tires, I run a Apex VS5 RS. These are the wheels that I care more about how they look, despite not cleaning them. And the tires I'd be comfortable running slicks on if I did. But for tires, this year's time attack dictates I run a 225 all around. So today we got AO 52s. And then for the Ongrid Sports that I usually run on driving days or giving people rides, we have Bridgestone RE71 RS in 245 width. Alright, y'all are gonna have to forgive the weird angles, but I'm under my quick jack, so first thing that you'll see once all the under trays are off is my header. It's a HKS equal length with this header shield treatment on it. All it is just some insulation, but I find it works really well in terms of keeping total engine bay temps down. So as you can see, there's a lot of rubber hoses running right by the header, and I wanted to keep it insulated if I was switching away from the OEM header. Next, we have this Cusco lower control arm brace that replaces the little metal brackets here and ties both of them together with a bar. That's just part of the Cusco package that I got. So if we move a little further down, we have the Cusco steering rack bushing and bracket here. We also have the power brace, they call it, that ties a lot of the suspension components together, mainly the front subframe to the what I would call the sway bar mounts. I just tie those together. Everything ties together really nicely. Gets you a lot of triangulation. The exhaust, moving on from the header, we have the 60 mil HKS overpipe, which also has the heat shield or header shield wrap on it. Then we have a Motive high flow cat pipe. And if we move a little further down from the transmission, we have a Cusco transmission mount bushing with the stock transmission mount still in there. I also have the Cusco engine mounts, and then you can't see it in the oil pan, but we have the Blue Moon baffle plate and the stock pickup in there. The clutch and flywheel I use now is a Cusco lightweight flywheel, and I believe they call it the copper clutch, but it's just a OEM Exetti, almost the same as the OEM, just it feels about the same. I'm not sure about the torque ratings or whatnot, but it's been holding up just fine since 14,000 miles that I replaced it at. Moving on a little further back, I have these solid bushings for my drivetrain carrier bearing mount. They did make a little bit more noise than the stock bushings, but I don't think it's at the detriment of my drivetrain in terms of the strain that it puts on it. And then these little tags are for the inboard mounts of my lap belts for the harnesses. And then here's what most people came to see, is my rear diff. and all the suspension that goes along with it. So starting with the diff, it's a Cusco 1.5 way Type RS set to 60% locking with their diff cover. And then I have the Cusco diff brace with the bushings in there. And then I have this rear subframe brace. And then I also have the solid rear subframe collars. It's not a solid mount. The OEM bushing is still in there, but these are just little collars to keep it isolated more. Also forgot to mention that the diff front mounts of it are also the Cusco solid collars. Another thing down here is these rear lower control arm pivot mount to the mount point for the trailing arm, just to add some extra triangulation in the rear suspension. Mid pipe, they call it, I think, is still stock. I do have a little bit of a shield here for the CV axle so that doesn't overheat or anything like that. Nameless ultra quiet catback. It's kind of purple. So what made me choose the first generation BRZ in 2021 to start driving on the track with? Around like 2016, 2017, when I was getting into cars, watching stuff like Initial D and Hot Version, and playing games like Assetto Corsa, the type of car I wanted to drive in real life was, you know, like a lightweight two-door rear-wheel drive, and this car kind of fit the bill. And everywhere I looked, you know, I was seeing stuff like the Revolution 8.6 and Keiichi Tsuchiya's Black 8.6, and then at the end of Initial D final stage there's that orange FRS, so it was kind of everywhere. You know, and researching a little more into it, I saw the aftermarket was really big, and you know, people were tracking them all over the place, so I just wanted something that wasn't gonna break all the time, and I think that I made a pretty good choice considering nothing's really gone wrong. Compared to like an ND, like why didn't I get a Miata to start driving on the track with? Well, in terms of ND, I didn't really see a whole lot of it, you know, as I was getting into cars. Like, I knew it existed, I drove it all the time in Assetto Corsa, but in terms of like modification and tuning knowledge, I guess I didn't think that there was as much of a aftermarket for it. I mean, like, this is what I thought back then, but I didn't really see it on like Hot Version, because I'm guessing in Japan they have a 1.5 liter, so maybe it wasn't as fast of a car as we think it is here. But there's nothing wrong with Miatas, I just am partial to Subarus, I guess. But as far as modifying the car and wanting to develop my skill as a driver, I wanted to start with a completely stock car, and then as I developed as a driver, you change the car little bits at a time to give myself that physical understanding of what like alignment does and what spring rates do, or sway bar settings and things like that. Why not wait 1 year to buy the new GR86 when you bought this car? I didn't feel like that waiting a year to start driving on the track, or delaying a year to start driving on the track, was worth getting into the new car. With this car, I already knew that, you know, people have been tracking it for 9 years. There's 9 years of aftermarket and parts, and I didn't feel like that 15% more horsepower would have improved my learning experience, which was the whole goal of getting a rear-wheel drive car, and starting to drive on the track. Why haven't I added aero yet? For this 2024 season, the on-grid time attack says that there's no aero allowed in the sport class, so I'm just going to wait until the season's over and then maybe try experimenting with it. Will you ever make your car forced induction? I've thought about it, but I really like the character of how naturally aspirated cars work, so maybe in the future, I would get a separate engine because this FA20 performs quite well for NA. And it would most likely be a turbo instead of a supercharger because I have seen a lot of supercharger issues at the track, specifically with this car. You know, so as I'm telling you guys about all the parts on this car, I don't want you to take it as a tutorial or a guide on how to set up your BRZ or 86 or FRS for the track because, you know, I spent multiple track days between each change in the beginning to really learn what things felt like and what I wanted out of the car. So, you know, I don't think that you should just take everything that I'm saying in this video and apply it one for one to your car. Like, there's definitely things you can take away, but I think testing for yourself and feeling what you want from the car is more important than just copying what other people say on the internet.